Hello students. Now let's start chapter 13, Sound. First, let's do some warm-up. Let's see these pictures and try to name these musical instruments. Let's know about sound, a form of energy, how sound is produced, sound produced by animals, sound needs a medium for propagation, speed of sound, amplitude, tune, period and frequency of vibration, loudness and pitch. We are familiar with the different type of sounds that we hear daily from early morning to the late night. These sounds may be sound of chirping of birds on the trees, sound of different vehicles on the street, sound of whistle of city, sound of whistle of our game teacher, voice of our friends and teachers, sound of your mobile phone and TV, sound of ticking of clock, sound of humming of insects and mosquitoes, sounds produced by musical instruments like harmonium, tabla, guitar, sitar, flute, drum, मंजीरा etc. So students, ये कुछ sounds जो हम डेली में सुनते हैं. Sound plays an important role in our lives. It helps us to communicate with one another. We hear sound with the help of our ears. Animals also have ears to hear the sound. Animals भी सुनते हैं आवाज, हम भी सुनते हैं, तो हम सब अपनी sounds अपने ear से सुनते हैं. We can recognize the voice of our friends even if they are not visible to us. हम अपने दोस्तों की आवाज बिना सुने भी पहचान लेते हैं. We can also distinguish different types of sounds because each sound has some definite character. For example, we can differentiate between the sounds produced by different musical instruments. तो इस तरीके से हम अलग अलग sounds अलग अलग तरीके से पहचान सकते हैं, चाहे हमें वो चीज दिख नहीं रही हो. Similarly, the sounds produced by different animals are different. Even the sounds produced by different humans differ from each other. Rather, we can recognize our friend or anybody else known to us only by hearing the sound. Let's talk about sound. Sound, a form of energy. Sound एक energy की form होती है. Sound is a form of energy which produces a sensation of hearing in our ears. How sound is produced? Sound is produced by a vibrating body. To and fro and back and forth motion of an object is called vibration. Sound is produced by vibration of object. Thus, sound is a vibration that is capable of being heard. और वाइब्रेशन होती है किसी भी बॉडी का इधर से उधर होना या अपनी जगह से वापस हिलना और अपनी जगह पर आना, और इसी वाइब्रेशन से साउंड प्रोड्यूस होती है. ऑलमोस्ट ऑल ऑब्जेक्ट्स प्रोड्यूस साउंड ऑन वाइब्रेशन. सभी ऑब्जेक्ट वाइब्रेशन से साउंड प्रोड्यूस करते हैं. लेट अस वेरीफाई दिस by collecting as many different kinds of objects as possible. For example, a pan, a rubber band, a metal dish, earthen pot, glass tumbles, etc. and performing the following activities to produce a vibration in them to produce sound. Students, now let's do some activity. Activity 1. Let's take a rubber band, put it around the longer side of a pencil box, insert 2 pencils between the box and the stretched rubber. Now, plug the rubber band somewhere in the middle. Do you hear any sound? Does the band vibrate? Look at this picture, plucking the rubber band. Activity 2. Take a metal dish, pour water in it, strike it at its edge by a spoon. Do you hear a sound? Again, strike the plate and then touch it. Can you feel the dish vibrating? Strike the dish again. Look at the surface of water. Do you see any waves there? Now, hold the dish. What change do you observe on the surface of water? Can you explain the change? Is there a hint to connect sound with the vibration of a body? Activity 3. Now let's go to activity 3. Take 6 to 8 metal balls and tumblers. Fill them with water up to different levels, increasing gradually from one end to other end. Now take a pencil and strike the balls gently. Strike all of them in succession. You will hear a pleasant sound. This is your Jal Tarang. This picture, Jal Tarang. In all the above activities, we see that a vibrating object produces sound. In some cases, the vibration are easily visible to us, but in most cases, their amplitude is so small that we cannot see them. However, we can feel them. Now, let's talk about sound produced by animals. Let's take sound produced by humans. In humans, the sound is produced by a voice box of the larynx. Put your finger on the throat and find a hard lump that seems to move when you swallow. This part of the body is known as the voice box. It is at the upper end of the windpipe. Two ligaments known as vocal cords are stretched across the voice box or larynx in such a way that it leaves a narrow slit between them for the passage of air. Look at this picture. This is the voice box in humans. When the lungs force air through the slit, the vocal cords vibrate, producing sound. Muscles attached to the vocal cords can make the cords tight or loose. When the vocal cords are tight and thin, the voice is of high frequency, and when the vocal cords are loose and thick, the sound is of low frequency. Now, look at the sound produced by animals other than humans. Cow, cats, dogs, and many other animals produce sound by means of vocal cords. But all the animals do not have vocal cords. Birds produce sound by the means of a ring of cartilage called sirens. In their windpipe, some birds have two parts in their voice box. Therefore, two notes can be produced at the same time. Bees make a buzzing around by vibrating their wings very rapidly. Bullfrog is a large-headed American frog which produces sound with the help of vocal cords. But to increase the loudness of its croaks, throaty frog cry, a bullfrog inflates its throat like a balloon which amplifies the sound. Look at this picture. Bullfrog and its distended throat. Sound produced by different musical instruments. We are very much familiar with the different musical instruments. There are mainly three families of musical instruments. These are stringed instruments like Tantuvadya, wind or reed instruments Sushitvadya, percussion and membrane instruments Avanadhuvadya. Stringed instruments have taut strings which vibrate when they are plucked, struck or played with a bow. The pitch of the stringed instruments can be changed by altering the length of the strings. Star, sitar, veena, harp, santoor and violin are some of the string instruments. Let's look at this picture. These are some string instruments. Wind instrument make use of vibrating air column. In these instruments, air is blown into the instrument either directly or through reeds. Flute, shehnai and nadaswaram are some of the wind instruments. Look at this picture. These are some wind instruments. Percussion instruments have a taut skin, ayara, membrane. Drums, tabla, dholak and mridangam are some of the percussion instruments. Look at these pictures of some percussion instruments. Many of you might have seen manjira, cymbals, the ghatam and the nut pots have. These instruments are commonly used in all parts of our country. They form the fourth class. Let's look at the fourth one of musical instruments known as Ghanavadya, which are simply beaten or struck. The Jal Tarang and bells are also example of such instruments. Look at these pictures. Few more musical instruments. Every musical instrument has a vibrating part. For example, the vibrating part of veena is the stretched string, while that of tabla is the stretched membrane, and that of their flute is the air column. When we pluck the string of an instrument like the sitar, the sound that we hear is not only the sound of the string, the whole instrument is forced to vibrate, and it is the sound of the vibration of the instrument that we hear. Similarly, when we strike the membrane of a mridangam, The sound that we hear is not only that of membrane but of the whole body of an instrument. Sound needs a medium for propagation. When a sound is produced, it propagates like a wave which needs medium to propagate. It can propagate through solids, liquids or gases, but it cannot propagate in vacuum. Let us investigate the propagation of sound through these mediums by performing the following activities. Look at this activity 4. Take a metal glass tumbler, make sure that it is dry, place a cell phone in it. Remember that cell phone must not be kept in water. Ask your friend to get a ring on the cell phone from the another cell phone. Listen to the ring carefully. Now surround the rim of the tumbler with your hands. Put your mouth on the opening between your hands. Indicate to your friend to give a ring again. Listen to the ring while sucking air from the tumbler. Does the sound become fainter as you suck it? Remove the tumbler from your mouth. Does the sound become loud again? Can you think of an explanation? Is it possible that the decreasing amount of air in the tumbler had something to do with the decreasing loudness of the ring? Indeed, if you had been able to suck all the air in the tumbler, the sound would stop completely. Actually, the sound needs a medium to travel. When air has been removed completely from a vessel, it is said that there is vacuum in a vessel. The sound cannot travel through the vacuum. Does sound travel in liquid? Let us find out. Now, let's try activity 5. Take a bucket or a bathtub, fill it with clean water, take a small bell in one hand, shake this bell inside the water to produce a sound. Make sure that the bell does not touch the body of the bucket or the tub. Place your ear gently on the water surface. Can you hear the sound of the bell? Does it indicate the sound can travel through liquids? Look at this picture. Sound traveling through water. This is how whales and dolphins might be communicating underwater. Let us find out if sound can travel through solids also. Activity 6. You can also perform the above activity by placing your ear at one end of your long wooden or metallic table and asking your friend to gently scratch the other end of the table. Look at this picture. Sound can travel through solids. We find that sound can travel through wood or metal. In fact, sound can travel through any solid. You can perform interesting activities to show that sound can also travel through strings. Recall, if you made a toy telephone, can you say that the sound can travel through strings? We have learned so far that vibrating objects produce, look at this picture, a toy telephone. We have learned so far that vibrating objects produce sound and it is carried in all directions in a medium. How do we hear it? Speed of sound. We have just learned that sound needs medium to travel. That is, sound travels in solids, liquids and gases. The speed of sound is higher in solid and lowest in gases. Now let's talk about human ears. We hear sound through our ears. Ears are the sensory organs which enable us to hear sound. Ear may be treated as made up of 3 parts joined with each other. These are outer part, middle ear and inner ear. Outer ear. It consists of the pinna and the ear tube. At the end of the ear tube, a thin membrane called tympanic membrane or eardrum is stretched tightly. The eardrum separates the outer ear from the middle ear. It consists of 3 very tiny interlocked bones called hammer, anvil and stirrup. The innermost bone, that is stirrup, is connected to the inner ear through a tiny window. Inner ear, it consists of a coiled organ of hearing cochlear, semicircular canals, which are organs of balance, and auditory nerves. Look at this picture. This is human ear. Functioning of ear. Any vibrating object causes air molecules to vibrate. When these vibrations reach our ear, they are collected by pinna and funneled into the ear tube. Passing through the ear tube, the vibrations reach eardrum and the eardrum starts vibrating with the same frequency. This vibration is passed to the hearing organ where it gets converted into the signals. The auditory nerves take the signal to the brain and we hear the sound. To understand what the eardrum does, Let us build a tin can model of eardrum. Activity 7. Take a tin can, cut its end, stretch a piece of rubber balloon across one end of can and fasten it with a rubber band. Put 4 and 5 grains of dry creel on the stretched rubber. Now ask your friend to speak hooray hooray. From the open end, observe what happens. Why do the grain jump up and down? Conclusion. The eardrum is like a stretched rubber sheet. Sound vibrations make the eardrum vibrate. The eardrum sends vibration to the inner ear. From there, the signal goes to the brain. That is how we hear. So, students, that's how we know how we hear. And what are those sounds? What are these different kinds of sound? We must never put a sharp, pointed or hard thing into our ear. It can damage the eardrum. The damaged eardrum can impair hearing. Look at this picture. Plastic can, eardrum. Amplitude, time period and frequency of vibration. We have learned that the to and fro motion of an object is known as vibration. This motion is also called oscillatory motion. You have already learned in class 7th, unit 13, chapter motion and time about the oscillatory motion. Taking an example of a simple pendulum. Let us recall. Simple pendulum. Simple pendulum was discovered by an Italian scientist Galileo Galilei in the year 1583. It consists of a small spherical heavy metal ball called bob suspended with a light inextensible but flexible string thread from a rigid support so that it may oscillate without any friction. When bob of a pendulum is pulled in one direction and released, it starts moving in to and fro motion. This to and fro motion is an example of periodic or oscillatory motion. Look at this picture, a simple pendulum. Oscillation. The to and fro motion of the bob from its center C to its one extreme A to another extreme B and again from B to center C is called oscillation of the pendulum. The pendulum also completes one oscillation when its bob moves from one extreme position A to the other extreme position B and comes back to A. Time period. Time period of the pendulum. It is generally denoted by T. Amplitude. The maximum distance to which the ball moves from its central position is called the amplitude of oscillation. In figure, CA or CB is the amplitude of the oscillation. Amplitude is denoted by A. Frequency. A number of oscillation per second is called the frequency of oscillation. Frequency is denoted by V and its unit is second inverse, which is called hertz. If an object oscillates 30 times in 1 second, then its frequency is 30 hertz. If an object takes 10 seconds in one oscillation, then its frequency is 1 by 10 second or hertz, that is 0.1 second or hertz. Thus, V is equals to 1 by T. Loudness and pitch. Loudness. The amplitude of a sound relates to its loudness. Loudness is the characteristic of a sound which differentiates between a feeble sound and a loud sound. In fact, the loudness of a sound is proportional to the square of its amplitude. Loudness is proportional to amplitude square. Thus, the larger the amplitude, the louder will be the sound. The loudness of a whisper will be smaller than the loudness of a normal conversation. Pitch. The frequency determines the shrillness or pitch of a sound. If the frequency of vibration is higher, we say that the sound is shrill and has higher pitch. If the frequency of vibration is lower, we say that the sound has lower pitch. For example, a drum vibrates with a low frequency, therefore it produces a low pitch sound. On the other hand, a whistle has a high frequency and therefore it produces a sound of higher pitch. A bird makes a high pitch sound, whereas a lion makes a low pitch sound. Let us look at these pictures. Frequency determines the pitch of a sound. However, the roar of a lion is very loud while the sound of a bird is quite feeble. Every day you hear the voices of children and adults. Do you find any difference in their voices? Can you say that the frequency of a voice of a child is higher than that of an adult? Usually, voice of a woman has a higher frequency and is shriller than that of a man. Audible and inaudible sounds. We know that we need a vibrating body for the production of sound. In fact, the human ear can hear the sound having frequencies between 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. The sound of frequencies greater than 20,000 Hz is called ultrasonic sound, and the sound frequencies lower than 20 Hz is called subsonic sound. Thus, the sounds having frequencies between 20 to 20,000 Hz come under the audible sound, while the having frequency below 20 Hz and above 20,000 Hz comes under the inaudible sound. Some animals can hear sounds of frequencies higher than 20,000 Hz. Dogs have this ability. The police use high frequency whistle which dogs can hear but humans cannot. The ultrasound equipment familiar to us for investigating and tracking many medical problems works at frequency higher than 20,000 Hz. Sounds may be pleasant or unpleasant to our ears. For example, the sound produced by musical instruments are pleasant, while the sound produced by the traffic at a busy crossing or the screech of automobile beaks are unpleasant sounds, which produce pleasing sensation to our ears are called musical sound or music, while the sounds which produce unpleasant sensation to our ears are called noise. Sound produced by a harmonium is a musical sound. The string of sitar also gives out a musical sound, but if a musical sound becomes too loud, would it remain melodious? Noise pollution. Presence of excessive or unwanted sound in the environment is called noise pollution. Major cause of noise pollution are sounds of vehicles. Explosions are sounds of vehicles, explosions including bursting of crackers, machines, loudspeakers, etc. What sources in the home may lead to noise? Television and transistor radio at high volumes. Some kitchen appliances, desert coolers, air conditioners also contribute to noise pollution. What are the harms of noise pollution? Do you know that presence of excessive noise in the surroundings may cause many health related problems? Lack of sleep, hypertension, high blood pressure, anxiety and many more. Health disorders may be caused by noise pollution. A person who is exposed to a loud sound continuously may get temporarily or even permanent impairment of hearing. Measures to control noise pollution. Given below are some ways to which noise pollution can be controlled or minimized. First, locating factories and industries units away from the residential areas. Second, putting restriction on playing loud music at public places. Third, putting restrictions on excessive honking by automobiles, running radios and televisions at low volume. Hearing impairment and solutions. Hearing impairment refers to the condition of hearing loss. The degree of hearing impairment can vary widely from person to person. Some people have partial hearing loss while others have complete hearing loss. A child with hearing loss may attend a special school, special classes which within a regular school or may be a part of regular classroom. Some people with hearing loss may need to use special techniques such as the following to communicate. Speech reading, which involves looking closely at a person's lips, facial expression and gesture to help figure out spoken words. American Sign Language or ASI, which is a language of hand movement that allow people to hearing impairment to communicate with another without speaking. Cute speech and signed exact English without uses hand shapes to translate what is being said. Both are meant to be used with spoken language to help people understand anything they cannot comprehend through lip reading. The chapter we have all read above, now we are going to summarize that chapter in a nutshell. First, sound is a form of energy which produces a sensation of hearing in our ears. Second, sound is produced by vibrating objects. In human beings, the vibration of the vocal cords produces sound. There are mainly three families of musical instruments: stringed instrument, Tantu Vaidya, wind or reed instruments, Sushir Vaidya, and percussion or membrane instruments, Avnadu Vadya. Sound travels through a medium, gas, liquid or solid. It cannot travel in vacuum. The eardrum senses the vibration of sound. It sends the signal to brain. This process is called the hearing. The frequency is expressed in hertz. Larger the amplitude of vibration, louder the sound. Higher the frequency of vibration, higher the pitch, and the shriller is sound. Unpleasant sound are called noise. Keywords: audible, able to be heard. Hertz, the SI unit of frequency, equal to 1 cycle per sound. Larynx, the hollow muscular organ forming an air passage to the lungs and holding the vocal cords in humans and other animals. Noise, a loud unpleasant sound. Oscillation, movement back and forth in a regular rhythm. Thank you, students. Now we'll meet in the next class.